right, let's talk about exploitative plays. What does an exploitative play mean? An exploitative play is a play, it's a play where you basically take advantage of your opponent deviating from an optimal strategy. So he's either 3-betting to lose, so that means we're 4-betting more, or he's 3-betting so tight, so we're folding more hands. So what is an exploitative play? Let's take a look in situations where middle position is 3-betting. It doesn't matter if we're the initial open raiser or if we're sitting behind. But let's take a look if someone 3-bets middle position versus under the gun around 5%. And MP 3-betting around 5% is a stat you see quite often. There are obviously tighter players and looser players. How many combinations or let's say how likely is it to get aces, kings, or queens? It's around 1.36% of the time. Including ace king and ace king off and ace king suited, the value range of our opponent is around 2.56%. Assuming we have ace 5 suited, no matter if we were the initial open raiser or we are sitting behind, if we have ace 5 suited, we block 50% of the aces combos. Villain's value range, consisting of queens to aces, drops from 1.36% to 1.11%. Why am I only talking about queens to aces? Very often people flat call ace king in middle position versus under the gun when the stack sizes are more deeper, which also makes totally sense. Against under the gun, you don't necessarily have to re-raise or 3-bet ace king off or ace king suited pre-flop. Very often both options have relatively same value. Again, remember what I've been teaching in the very first video of the pre-flop course, flat calling, oh no, sorry, it was in the 3-bet course, that sometimes if you have weaker opponents sitting behind, it is better to flat call a hand like ace king, because having a weaker opponent in the pot is benefits your EV tremendously. So and if we also consider the fact that ace 5 suited also blocks ace king off and ace king suited, and assuming he would 3-bet ace king off and ace king suited, his value 3-betting range drops from 2.56% to around 1.96%. So just because us having the ace x blocker decreases his value range by around 20 to 25%. So here you can see how important blockers can be. So for example, queen jack would not be a good bluff 4-bet hand because we block lots of villains bluffs and only a few value hands. So here, let's take a look what villain might bluff with. It would be something like queen jack suited, jack 10 suited, queen 10 suited, those kind of hands. So we're not really blocking his value range. So if he 3-bets 5%, his value range might remain at around 2.56%. Maybe it drops a bit because we have a queen blocker, so let's say around 2.4, 2.3%. Yet we also decreasing the bluffing part, or yeah, the bluffing part automatically decreases because we are blocking his potential bluff hands. So that makes it more likely that our opponent actually has a value hand. So be aware of what hands you choose when 4-bet bluffing. Yet, obviously with ace 5 suited, we also block our opponent's bluffing range. Don't get me wrong, but here we also block his value range tremendously. And with a hand like queen jack, we're not really blocking his value range, but we're blocking his bluffing range. So how can we take advantage of that? Very often good racks flat ace king in MP in order to keep the pot small, which also makes a lot of sense, especially with deeper stack size. You don't want to play 100 or 150 big blind pot with ace king and a 4-bet or even a 3-bet pot. So if you're sitting in the blinds, cold 4-bet bluffing or bluff 4-betting a lot against someone who's 3-betting more than 5% from MP with ace x or king x type of hands is something you should consider. You should have it in your repertoire. And if you want to choose hands to cold 4-bet bluff with, so let's assume someone is opening from under the gun and another opponent is 3-betting for middle position, we're in the small blind or big blind, you should choose hands like ace-5 suited where we block aces and ace-king. Also, very often opponents from MP, they're actually not 3-betting so many ace-x hands as a bluff. They're flatting ace-jack, they're flatting ace-queen, they're flatting ace-10 suited, and they don't really want to get involved with hands like ace-jack or ace-10 off, especially the off-suited combos. They're more likely to 3-bet hands like even an ace-queen off as a bluff, or like it's somewhere in between bluff and value. Or hands like king jack suited, king 10 suited, queen 10 suited, queen jack suited, 10-9 suited. Those kind of hands tend people to use as a bluff more frequently. Or a hand like king jack suited where we block kings, we block ace king, we also block the potential jacks. But I would think that people are flatting jacks mostly. Anyway, you have to be aware of the stack size. This is something I advise for more deeper stack size. If someone has 50 big blinds, obviously he will also 3-bet for value, maybe even jacks or even tens or even all the ace king combos. And then his 5% range consists of more value hands. But again, with 100 big blinds, he might flat jacks, he might flat ace king, so his value range is actually not that much or not that wide. And then obviously the part or the fraction of his bluffs is way wider. And even you will face opponents who 3-bet 6, 7, or 8% from MP. And then against those opponents, it's time to execute, it's time to apply these exploitative plays because it looks super strong. And if they have anything but aces, kings, or queens, they will let go of their bluffs for sure. Don't do it against maniacs or recreational players, no matter what they're 3-betting. But if you follow the advice I've been giving you at the beginning of this course, don't 4-bet bluff against maniacs, recreational players, or nits. Okay, another exploitative play you can use or you can take as an advantage is use ICM for your advantage. There are situations where we might be committed chip EV-wise, but we're not committed dollar EV-wise. I'm not going to explain what it means right now here because risk premium ICM will be part of the ICM course, and then you will get a better idea of what I mean, because there we will also make calculations. I show you how high risk premiums can be, how does it change against certain stack sizes or with certain stack distributions, and how that how does it impact our ranges and our strategy. So here you just have to believe me. So for example, if you 3-bet a hand and you're even quite short, let's say you have your 15, 16 big blinds and you're in an ICM situation on a final table, you can still 3-bet forward. So for example, if you get 25% odds and you have ace deuce offsuited, you have a range, you have an equity against eights, ace queen, ace jack, and king queen suited, assuming he's 4-bet jamming that, of 28%. So we're not even getting the odds right away. So even with a 20 big blind scenario, if you're 3-bet or 18 big blinds, you can definitely 3-bet forward like hands like ace deuce off. So especially around 20, 22 or 18, 19 big blinds, it's a very powerful play. Now, if we add the risk premium, so let's say we're 3-betting a hand like ace-9 suited and we might even have more equity, we are not committed because we don't need only 25, we actually need 35% equity. Okay, this is the risk premium that comes into a play when ICM involved. And this is important at the bubble, this is important final tables, or even final 2, final 3 tables, depending on the payout structure. And this risk premium changes. Here I just said, okay, I'm assuming we have 10%. And this is not so high. There are situations where you need 15, 20, or even 25% more equity to go pre-flop. And those are the spots where you can on final tables where you can go broke with only with jacks and better, or even with kings and better, because you need so much more equity due to the fact that there are shorter stacks present on the final table. So you basically have to wait until they bust, and then you can go broke a little bit looser. But until that, you have to play tight, you have to be very cautious, because ICM forces you to play tight. What to do in these situations, how we can avoid that, and how we can still play a somewhat solid style even though we are in that mid-stack situation, I will also show you and teach you in the ICM course. And this is going to be very, 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 very nice. You're going to learn a lot of a lot about ICM and how to play your stack and how to play final tables in this course. So let's go on. And another exploitive play is 4-bet smaller versus big blind. I actually already explained that a little bit earlier. Big blind 3-bets are usually very polarized, basically trash or nuts. So we are only attacking the trash, and by that we're using a small 4-bet sizing. Versus small blind, we have to 4-bet bigger since the range is stronger. As easy as that. Otherwise, he's getting a too good price, and he's forced mathematically to call his entire range, and he's not really doing a mistake, right? If we 4-bet too small, he's not doing a mistake calling with a hand like Jack 10 suited, because he's getting the odds right away. And what it means, smaller or bigger, remember the slides earlier, I have taught you what sizings you should apply.